made by the one and only Liz Nugent with her creature collection. You know, her run of tokens and sleeves has been one of my favorites thus far. The penguin one's specifically cool because they get to fly. They have jetpacks. So
nothing like a jetpack on a penguin.
Nothing like a jet. I mean, that's just awesome, you know. But this junk token deck does look pretty sweet. Even though it's two junk decks fighting against each other, very different. Yeah, a couple more cards from Robert Temenak's deck. He does have 3 Putrefy, 3 Garruk Primal Hunter, 3 Sorin, 4 Thrag Tusk, Lingering Souls, Smiter, Farseek, Voice of Resurgence, and Arbor Elf. No Avacyn's Pilgrim, which seems a little out of place. But you know, he's like a green-based deck, I guess, and being able to untap, you know, the Overgrown Tombs and stuff may be important, but the lack of Avacyn's Pilgrim does feel a little bit weird.
Yeah, especially in a junk deck.
Yeah, a junk deck with Luxon, Smiter, and Lingering Souls, where all you want to do is cast, you know, your creatures on, you know, your big 3-drops on turn 2. I feel like Farseek should just be more Avacyn's Pilgrims or Mana Accelerators. But, you know, Evan, this is the deck I built. It's 4 Avacyn's Pilgrim, 4 Arbor Elf, a couple Sin Collectors, 3 Fiend Hunters. The main deck is the exact same from Chris Van Meter's deck from the Open last weekend. The thing that Evan's trying to ponder, he has a 1 land, an Avacyn's Pilgrim, but he has a Mulch. So if his Avacyn's Pilgrim dies, or you know, he just bricks on lands or whatever, he's not going to be able to cast Mulch. Or if he just whiffs on Mulch, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. So he's really taken a minute to figure out whether or not he's going to keep this hand.
Right.
I think he should, especially on the play.
On the draw, it's a little more sketchy, but on the play, it's hard for your opponent to have both an untapped land and a 1-mana spell to kill your creature.
All right, so we're going to take 2 here, cast this Avacyn's Pilgrim, cross our fingers, or hope we draw a land. Either way, I'm fine with that. All right, it looks like there aren't any ways for Robert to kill the Avacyn's Pilgrim, so Evan should be okay. We're going to take 2 from the Overgrown Tomb and play the Arbor Elf.
All right, so Robert matches Evan's start.
Yep.
Oh, I sure do wish I hope hit lands on this Mulch.
Well, he hit a 4, so I guess he doesn't need to. Yeah. Look, man, you can't make fun of Evan. Only I can make fun of him.
Oh.
He's my boss, and he's on camera for me to make fun of. Okay, you can do what you want. It's fine. All right, so he has 2 lands on the Mulch, one of which is a Temple Garden, which is awesome. So now, even if his Avacyn's Pilgrim dies, he still has access to white mana. Hopefully, over the next couple turns, he'll be able to start landing some of his better spells, maybe Acidic Slime or Thrag Tusk to put some pressure on the board, as well as gain some minute advantages.
And he does bin 2 Restoration Angels, not really what he wants to have in the graveyard.
Except that he has an Unbarrow Rights in hand, and if he plays his Thrag Tusk, then he can just chain Restoration Angels for consecutive turns and really, you know, build a board presence against Robert's token deck while also gaining life to prevent a racing scenario. So turn 2 Lingering Souls from Robert to put some, you know, pressure on the board, maybe tick down Evan's life a little bit. But like we said, he does not have access to Intangible Virtue, but he does have Sorin to make those Lingering Souls into real monsters.
Right, and you know, really Lingering Souls, it's such a powerful card. It doesn't need Intangible Virtue. You don't need to clog your deck up with this if you don't want to.
Right.
That just means you might have to take out a few of the other token cards.
Right. So, I mean, we've seen versions that played Call the Conclave already and things like that, just ways to generate tokens constantly so that your Intangible Virtues do get more and more powerful. Evan here passes the turn with access to 3 mana. He's either going to Grizzly Salvage or he just has a bunch of like bigger spells in hand. It looks like his hand is Grizzly Salvage, a couple of
Rights.
Yeah, Unbarrow Rights, a couple of gold cards. I can't see what the other one is, but and I know he has a Thrag Tusk for sure. So Robert decides to take 2 from his Overgrown Tomb, probably to cast Advent of the Worm, which I saw in his hand, but instead opts for a Sorin, which is going to do what we said and pump those Lingering Souls tokens, or maybe just make a vampire, but he makes an emblem.
Interesting. I'm a little surprised he didn't make a vampire here just because of the Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Well, he doesn't have to attack with both of the things, and if he chooses to hold them back, you know, he's going to be able to protect his Sorin, which will, you know, potentially generate a bunch of 2/1s, which would be sweet. And then, you know, he doesn't want to just give up his Sorin. If he, you know, it's not like Evan has that much removal in his deck to really punish him for only leaving back 1 guy, so he can still attack for 2. And even if Sorin ends up dying, he has something to do later on.
Oh, wow, so Grizzly Salvage at the end of the turn. He almost untapped, but he got the salvage off first. And there's an Unburial Rites. 2 of them. That'll be good.
Is this good? He was really hoping to hit something like Angel Serenity, I think, though, since he does have the 2 Unburial Rites in hand already. Or just, sorry, the 1 Unburial Rites in hand. He decides to take a Sun Petal Grove, which gives him access to 3 potential white later in the game for Angel Serenity, along with the Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yeah, you know, it's pretty interesting. The original Mulch Grizzly Salvage Reanimation decks, they played a lot of big fatties like Elesh Norn. That was what they're really hoping to hit. And it was really more of a Reanimator deck. This Incarnation is just a value deck. If it doesn't hit the Angels, no big deal. It can cast them later.
Yeah, and the one of the coolest things about Restoration Angel in the deck is that you have so many cards to interact with it now, whereas before it wasn't that impressive, in my opinion. You know, Restoration Angel had like Thragtusk and Acidic Slime as their only targets, and for a long time, all it had was Thragtusk as its main target. And now we have main deck Fiend Hunters, we have Sin Collector, as well as the Thragtusk and Acidic Slimes, which means that we want to play more Restoration Angels. Not only is it a great power and toughness on a flyer at flash speed, but it generates a lot of value with its come to play effect.
Right. So Evan Erwin dropping a Thragtusk, going up to 21, and hoping to put some pressure on that Sorin, or at least drop life total.
It's going to be pretty hard without Angel Serenity, since he's going to have a Vampire token here after the activation, as well as the potential flashback from Lingering Souls, and I know for a fact he has Advent of the Worm in hand. It doesn't look like he has another land to play a Garrett Primal Hunter, but he does have a lot of gas to play with here. A second Lingering Souls in hand. So yeah, it looks like he's going to battle for 4 damage, putting Evan to 17. And he can follow it up with a multitude of effects.
We'll see what he chooses to do. It's got to involve Lingering Souls some way. Wow.
So since he has the blocker on the ground, he's just going to put Advent of the Worm into play and hopefully apply more pressure. Actually, I don't think it's that good though. But his reasoning could be that the Restoration Angel is going to brick wall his flyers for the foreseeable future, and the fact that there are 2 Angels in the yard along with 2 Unburial Rites, it's going to make that Thragtusk, a little awkward, if but maybe that means that playing Advent of the Worm's not that good either. So
yeah, it's kind of an interesting scenario. This board, it can be gummed up pretty easily if Evan wants it to.
Yeah, I mean, if either player wants it to, honestly, because Robert, if he feels like he needs to be on the defensive at some point, he has the ability to just generate a bunch of blockers, really, put the claws into Evan.
Oh wow, is this an Advent to block then?
I mean, possibly. He might just want to get the Thragtusk off the table so that he can Restoration Angel to have a flying blocker and to be able to get value out of the Thragtusk.
Right.
And since he has so much gas on backup in hand, he just wants to get the Thragtusk out of play so the Restoration Angel doesn't end up being a major problem as opposed to just a gigantic speed bump.
Yeah, and there's the Worm token. Evan lets it resolve. Does he have an Angel in hand?
It doesn't look like it. I think he's just got Sin Collector, Unburial Rites, looks like Acidic Slime, maybe a Grizzly Salvage, and a Woodland Cemetery, if I'm not mistaken. So he's fine with us letting this trade. He could slime Robert off of his only white mana with the Sun Petal Grove, which I think is the right play, because then after that he can start chaining Restoration Angel on Acidic Slime and just knock Robert completely out of the game by taking out all of his mana sources.
Right, and it won't really matter if Robert has the Sorin, if he has multiple
target the
emblems.
Overrun too?
Wow, weird. What is he trying to keep him off double black for?
I don't know, man. Maybe he just wants to kill all the forest so it turns off the Arbor Elf too, which is, a reasonable play, although I think cutting him off of white is much more important at this juncture, since, he could have access to, more Lingering Souls and things like that, but just, usually, it's the better play to just knock somebody off of a certain color.
Yeah, definitely, and wow, Robert just bins his Sorin to Emblem.
Yeah, cashing it in for another Emblem. I guess he realizes that he's going to be in a little bit of trouble here against Evan's Acidic Slime with the 2 Restoration Angels in the yard with the Unburial Rites, so he knows he wants to just put as much flying power into play as possible. It's likely he's just going to hard cast the Lingering Souls from hand, start getting in the 3/1 flying beats.
Yeah.
That's not a bad attack too. The Vampire has lifelink, and if Evan wants to trade, he's more than happy, taking care of the Beast token or the Acidic Slime, but he also just wants to try to get as much damage as possible, and he's still going to gain a bunch of life regardless of what happens.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Avacyn's Pilgrim trade here over the Beast. it's going to be hard for Evan to cast more than one spell in a turn.
Well, once he gets to
Right
8
now.
mana, he definitely can do that. And, I mean, maybe you're right, but it's not like he's going to win this race because of all these Lingering Souls in the yard that can just trade off with the Beast if they want to. And the mana might be valuable later. And it's also his third white source, I think, for an 8 Angel Serenity off the top.
Okay.
And I think that might be the more important aspect.
That's a good point.
And Evan here actually going to get a little bit of justice on his target for Acidic Slime because Robert's got another Arbor Elf. And now Evan can put a Restoration Angel into play, prevent some damage, but he's going to take 9 of it down to 2. And, you know, be in pretty bad shape unless he draws another Thragtusk. Or I guess he can always Unbarrow-Rice the other Thragtusk, but it's hard to put a Restoration Angel into play at the same time.
Yeah, it is, but here's the first Unburial on the Resto.
Yep, and that's going to... Well, we probably should have attacked for 2 first, but it's fine. Oh, no, he could have traded off with the Arbor Elf if he wanted to, so maybe that was a little bit better. Evan just showing me up.
Blink in the slime,
Yeah.
so you don't have to. There it is.
That's pretty good.
Here comes Sin Collector.
Here comes a Sin
Okay.
Collector. I don't like this play that much. I mean, sure, it takes care of this Lingering Souls, but unless Robert was able to draw a forest, it's unlikely he was going to be able to cast it anytime soon. What he could have done was Grizzly Salvage instead and try to hit an Angel of Serenity or something like that. But then again, he can always Grizzly Salvage next turn for Angel of Serenity, although he couldn't cast the Angel of Serenity if he wanted to put it into his hand. So now he's just locked in on Unbarrow-Writing the Angel of Serenity should he hit one off of the Grizzly Salvage, which he desperately needs to.
Right, and Isolated Chapel for Robert both comes into play tapped and does not get untapped by Arbor Elf, so still stuck on 2 here.
Well, stuck on 1
Stuck
for,
on
for
one
this
for the
turn,
turn,
yeah.
yeah.
So not able to do much of anything. I think he's just going to play a land, attack for a bunch in the air. He's going to get one of his guys eaten. Evan's going to go to 2. What's interesting to note is that Evan, if he misses on his Grizzly Salvage next turn, can still Unbarrow-Rights on the Thragtusk, and that'll put him to 7. He can block one of the tokens with a Restoration Angel and take 6 damage down to 1.
Right. Wow, the Arbor Elf's turning sideways too.
Yeah, I would definitely just put both my Acidic Slime and my Sin Collector in front of those just to make sure we don't die.
Yeah, he's already going to 2 here. He can't leave any creature unblocked.
No man left behind.
Yep, that's right. So the board now, Robert has 1 land and 3 3/1 Lingering Souls tokens versus Evan Erwin's 7 mana, one of which is an elf, and the rest though.
Yeah, I believe he still has a Woodland Cemetery in hand as well, so he can still potentially trade off the Arbor Elf if he needs to. Oh, is that an Angel of Serenity?
I think it just might have been.
Fatty Boom Booms.
Look at that, getting bailed out by the deck. Evan Erwin gets rid of the 3 flyers.
Well, you know what they say, better lucky than good, and this is definitely one of those points.
Evan Erwin, perfect example, better lucky than good.
Yeah.
There we go.
To be fair, he could have had another look at the top 5 for a redraw with the Grizzly Salvage, so definitely not in a bad spot, but Robert here, gonna take 2, going down to 13. Probably going to cast another Lingering Souls, but at this point I think Evan's just going to be able to start chaining Unbarrow-Rights on both Restoration Angel and Thragtusk and just put the game away.
Right. He's going to be able to get a Thragtusk, go up to a healthy 7, and force Robert to chump block in only a couple of turns.
Yeah. Right here, he's potentially attacking for 8, which will put Robert to 5, and then he can just put the Thragtusk into play, go up to 7. He can afford to take 1 hit from it, but instead he's going to use Salvage to try to dig for another Angel of Serenity to Unbarrow-Rights back.
Right, to just put the game away right
and
now.
that'll lock it up. Well, that's a Thragtusk.
Okay.
Not terrible.
Not so bad.
It's possible he wants to hold back the Restoration Angel just for max prevent purposes. If Robert really wants to get rid of the Angel of Serenity, he'd have to double block it, but then it's just going to get Unbarrow-Rights, and things are just going to get worse from there. Evan really just doesn't want to die to any sort of intangible virtue type effect, which I think attacking with the Restoration Angel would ultimately, involve.
Yeah, attacking with the Resto would definitely be a punt here. Even though Robert doesn't have the virtue in his deck, has no real way to punish Evan, it's still not worth it.
Oof. And a little risky here. If you're going to attack there, though, I think you also attack with Avacyn's Pilgrim. You're more than happy to trade it for a guy, and you're not using the mana this turn.
Right.
But, Evan's at 7. Robert decides to take it, and, Evan, might have been a little aggressive here.
And now if he drew land, so if he has another Sorin, that's the game.
He has a Tusk and a Garrett stuck in hand. Yeah, those acidic slimes were pretty backbreaking, but he still has the flashback on Lingering Souls here, you know, and he can block. You know, some of the creatures to not die, like he can block the Thragtusk, block the Angel Serenity, take 3 damage from the Angel's Restoration Angel, go to 2, and still have 2 big flyers. So Evan, you know, he's going to be taking 6 down to 1, and a Thragtusk coming back is not going to do it. He's going to have to probably Restoration Angel before attacks on the Thragtusk. Otherwise, you know, he's going to lose his Thragtusk and not be able to gain that life back.
Yeah, I don't think Robert can attack at all. I think he can attack with 1 token.
If he attacks with both, he can attack with both and then block Tusk and Serenity, taking 4 down to 1. Yeah. And I think that puts him in the best position to potentially win the game.
Yeah, Evan not actually doesn't have it locked up quite yet.
No, I mean, I actually think that his attack last turn actually could have opened him up to a variety of cards to just die.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe that's something he wasn't thinking about. Like I said, he was getting very aggressive with his attacks. If he had held back the Restoration Angel, I don't think there was any possible way he could have lost the game. Now he's in a situation where if he attacks incorrectly or sequences his plays incorrectly, he could very easily just give the game to Robert.
Yeah, it's just one lucky top deck away from Robert. And yep,
right, so battling for 6. Evan's going to go to 1. Let's just peel Angel Serenity and put it away.
I'm not gonna not laugh when you do that. So just keep doing it.
Deal. Okay, that's a Restoration Angel. That one ain't bad. So now he can actually Restoration Angel and flashback on Unbearer Rights and get 2 triggers from a Thragtusk. So
yeah, and put it absolutely out of reach.
Yeah, that attack. Yeah, come on. Let's think this through for just a moment.
You don't have to think for long. All right.
Okay, so 4, 5. So he can attack with the Absence Pilgrim and still be able to play 2 spells. So, all right. So this is a sequence that I expected. I'm okay with the Tusk dying because he can Unbearer Rights it first, but he opts to just play it safe, and he's just going to gain 10 life, make a bunch of beasts, and really put Robert on the back foot. That was a pretty good top deck from Evan.
Yep, so Evan Erwin up to 6, Robert down to 2. Evan has to play another spell, though, because as it stands right now, he's still dead on board.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely needs to Unbearer Rights and then the other Restoration Angel to blink the Thragtusk, to go to 11, and you know, put himself out of range of death by flyers.
Right.
Or just another Thragtusk.
That'll work, too.
That's fine. It's good enough.
So Evan up to 11, and Robert Temenak drawing dead.
Yeah, I don't think he has an out, so pretty good sequence of turns by Evan. You know, maybe it didn't take like the best line possible, but there's so many different things you can do with the deck, so many different lines you can take that it's hard to figure out exactly which one's the best. I know Evan hasn't played that much Magic recently too, so I mean he knows how all the cards work and how they interact, but just like being able to see that one avenue that's the best, I think is something that you know, a more seasoned player would do. But you know, Evan's still pulling out the game because his deck is very powerful, and you know, just like a good sequence of plays, even though it wasn't like the perfect one, it was still good enough.
Yeah, Junkrites is just such a powerful deck, and so often it has all these lines with Grizzly Salvage and Mulch and Burial Rites and Acidic Slime and Restoration Angels. You have so many options, and you know, it's so easy to get sloppy when you're winning.
Well, he wasn't really winning a lot of that game, so
true.
I mean, you know, it's one thing to be sloppy when you know you play a lot and then you get lazy. But like I said, Evan, you know, he works a ton. You know, he puts in a lot of effort at Star City Games, and not gonna talk bad about his mistakes. Not only because he's my boss, but also because I mean that's just. I mean, those things just happen when you don't play a lot of Magic. You don't really see a whole lot of the interactions. Maybe even, like, count your mana, right? Like, he just didn't attack a couple turns in a row with an Absence Pilgrim when that damage could have mattered a lot, you know, in future turns when trying to Alpha Strike, and then that makes the blocks worse for Robert. And, you know, he was so focused on that mana mattering in the early part of the game that when later in the game when it didn't matter, he wasn't able to really put it together. And you know, with more play, I think Evan is a good enough player where he could eventually get to the point, but he just, you know, he works hard. He just wanted to come have fun this weekend, and I'm glad he's doing well. 4-1, still in great shape to make top 8, especially up a game here.
With your deck too.
Yeah, well, it's more of BBD's deck, so I'm not taking credit. I just put it together. I physically built it. I didn't actually build it.
It's your physical deck though. Those are your cards that he's playing with. So maybe if he wins this tournament, he can sign some of them for you.
Dude, maybe he'll give me a raise if he wins this tournament.
Prize split? No,
dog.
Raise.
That ain't me. Yeah.
So
I'm going for the long game. We don't want no short-term investment. So, okay, let's go over some sideboarding real quick while they're still shuffling up. Looks like they're still sideboarding, but so I think Evan might side in Abrupt Decay just because he thinks that Robert's a token-based deck. Maybe he has Intangible Virtue, and that's just a card that's good against him. But unfortunately, it's not very good. And that's like a common thing that happens with sideboarding is that you end up diluting your deck for fear of other cards.
Right.
And so he might, make his Reanimator strategy a little worse by bringing in something like Abrupt Decay for fear of Intangible Virtue, because that, along with Lingering Souls, is just incredibly hard to deal with. He also has Sever the Bloodline, which is going to be very good. He's probably going to be cutting some Sin Collectors.
Right. Now, Robert, on the other hand, he has 0 ways to interact with his opponent's graveyard. He has no ground seals. He has no
move Cotton.
Yeah, it really is. And, he's 4-1, though, so he's managed to either dodge or beat Junk Reanimator so far.
I mean, Lingering Souls in general is very good against Junk Reanimator as long as they don't have Angel Serenity. Not only can you block, whenever you're trying to race with, other creatures, because it generates so many bodies, but, along with any sort of pump effect, like Sorin or what have you, Lingering Souls is just backbreaking in a lot of situations. Like that game right there, he had a bunch of 3/1 tokens. Very easily could have taken over the game should Evan have drawn a little bit more poorly or just made, like one small mistake here or there.
Right. So Robert, he has Brewborn Defenses, Triumph of Ferocity, Tristani, Sundering Growth, Selesnya Charm, Abrupt Decay, and a pair of removal spells, O-Ring and Putrefy.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to be bringing in the Selesnya Charms. It exiles 2 of the more powerful creatures in the matchup in both Thragtusk and Angel Serenity, and the fact that it exiles them means that there's no Embarrass shenanigans going on after that. Unfortunately, it does not keep them from coming into play the first time. So
or leaving play.
Yeah, or leaving play. So he's still going to get, the sweet abilities. There's no ground seals. There's no way for him to keep Unbear Rights from being good. So, maybe Evan will just take it on the back of a lack of preparation from Robert.
Yeah, it's a really disappointing sideboard for this matchup. He has Selesnya Charms. He can bring in some removal spells if that's the way he wants to go, but really he has almost no options available to him.
Yeah.
He can make like a marginal swap of like O-Ring over Putrefy or like a Putrefy over I don't even know. He can't even make that many marginal swaps. It's tough. His deck's going to be mainly the same.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him side in a few and side out a few, so I assume that just like 3 Selesnya Charm came in. He might have sided out something that was a little slower, or maybe even like Voice of Resurgence, because it's not that great in these green-on-green matchups. The times where Voice of Resurgence is good is going to be against the hyper-aggressive, decks like Naya Blitz, Mono Red Aggro, as well as the control decks like Band Flash and Esper Control. It's not great against the decks that play like Thragtusk. Not only are they very rarely casting spells in your turn, but, a 4/4 creature token is not going to match up well against a Thragtusk, I mean, if you're able to get it to a point where it's big enough to attack in combat, who cares? I'll just chump block forever with these cards. Evan also has access to Fiend Hunter, which is very good against both the opposing Advent of the Worm as well as Voice of Resurgence and his subsequent token.
Yeah, it's so weird. A card like the Voice of Resurgence, they so rarely make a card that is really good against both hyper-aggressive decks and hyper-controlling decks. It's a weird middle ground.
Yeah, I think it's rare. Like I can't think of one in at the moment that is good against both of those, and it's right in the sweet spot because that's one of the problems that a lot of the decks in the format have is that they're so geared towards beating one or the other that they often lack a good way to beat the other one when they're paired against the wrong one. And Voice of Resurgence is basically a split card. It's your opponent can't play counter spells, and your opponent can't attack.
Yeah, so, it's awesome. It's just sweet. A really well-designed card, really powerful.
Yeah. There are 4 Voice of Resurgence in Evan's board. I don't think they're coming in. I directed him earlier in the day to not side in Voice of Resurgence against the green-based, mid-range decks and stuff like that. So hopefully he takes my advice to heart. So Evan's keeping his 7. Looks like Robert is mulliganing to 6. Evan's doing some ninja cuts.
Top-
Ninja Quest. Pew, pew, pew.
Top forward to the bottom.
Dude, those were gonna be so good too. Jesse's just over here shaking his head. Oh man, I live for this.
Oh, Robert. Is Robert going to 6?
No, I think he's
to
keeping.
5?
He was just
okay.
fixing his deck up. So leading off with a Temple Garden, no Mana Accelerator from Robert. Not that surprising considering he's only playing 4, but he could have a Farseek to help ramp him into stuff. Looks like Evan's going to be starting off with an Arbor Elf.
Perfect. He'll take 2 for that, but it's well worth it.
Yep.
3 mana on turn 2 for Evan Erwin.
And yep, here comes a Farseek. F&M Farseek has been very popular today. That's basically the only one I've seen for people, I think, other than maybe Chihoyam, which he was playing just like the ones from M13. I don't think I've seen any Ravnica ones.
Or was that April?
It was recent. I don't know exactly which month it was. It might have been April or perhaps March. Evan drawing. I think he actually has multiple Mana Accelerators in hand still, so he could just flood the board with the cheap creatures here, which will allow him to accelerate into things like Acidic Slime, Thragtusk, and Angel of Serenity to start just taking over the game. In a matchup where your opponent doesn't have a whole lot of removal or the removal is slow, the 1-mana accelerators are basically just 1-mana Farseeks. And when one person has Farseek and the other person has a bunch of mana creatures, the person who has mana creatures is likely going to be ahead as long as the other person doesn't have some big blowout card like Profit Loss or anything like that. And obviously from the deck list that Robert has, he doesn't have anything like that.
Right, and Evan can just, like you said, flood it. And even if Evan doesn't have anything to do with it, those Farseeks, those 1-mana Farseeks can still attack even.
Yeah.
Still a reasonable clock.
Agreed. So access to potential 4 mana here, but I think his hand is just 3 Thragtusk and a land, so not something that Evan's really afraid of, actually. One of the key factors in the junk mirror matches that I was trying to tell Evan is that that's strange. Sorry, I don't mean to get off topic. One thing I told him is that Thragtusk isn't that good in these matchups because the games go very long and the life is mostly irrelevant. What your main focus should be is Acidic Slimes and Angel of Serenity.
Right.
This Obsidian is a little out of place. I guess he felt like he had a few extra cards to side out and didn't know really what to side in instead. But I mean, it's understandable, but it's going to look real bad against Thragtusk X3.
Yeah, it does. Robert goes up to 22 here, and really Evan just needs to find something to go over the top, either a Thragtusk of his own, ideally an Angel of Serenity.
Yeah. Angel of Serenity wouldn't be at its best at this point, though. You really want your opponent to have more creatures in play, maybe play Lingering Souls. I think the best draw here would be Acidic Slime to start not only taking care of the lands from the opponent, but to just get rid of that Gavany Township, which could end up being a problem in the later turns of the game. Well, he's going to Fiend Hunter a Thragtusk. I don't think this is going to end very well. However, Robert only has a few ways to deal with it in 3 Putrefy, and unless he brought in some Abrupt Decays, which I don't think he did. So hopefully, nothing bad happens. I feel like he's just going to battle for 5. Start putting some pressure on Robert. Not a bad play by any means, but it's always dangerous to Fiend Hunter a creature with a great come-to-play effect.
It is, yeah. Although, really, Evan doesn't care that much about the life total. He's more concerned with the resources.
Right. Looks like Evan didn't take my advice to heart. He has a Thragtusk in hand, and he just milled over another one. And Sin Collector. Well, at least he hit a land and an Unbarrow Rights off the mulch, so that's good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Lots of value. And it's actually strange. Normally Thragtusk isn't that good in these matchups, but since Robert has 3 of them, now Evan has access to 2 of his own to really, battle back and forth with Robert in that Thragtusk fight.
Yeah. And Obsidian leaves. It'll come back during the next upkeep.
Right. Funny, a new ruling for Obsidian or cards that, specifically exile themselves and then come back into play at other points. If you miss the trigger from Obsidian, it's not exiled forever, and it used to be like that where it would just stay exiled forever. Now Obsidian will re-trigger at the beginning of every upkeep, so if you accidentally forget it one time, you'll get it again the next turn, so it doesn't stay gone forever. I thought that was a positive change. For the rules, just because it's such a feel-bad moment when you forget an Obsidian trigger and then it just stays gone forever. So, good change. But Evan still had a very healthy life total and about to cast some Thragtusks. So, another Unbarrow Rights for Evan, so it's looking good.
So on one side we have the Thragtusk plus the Unburials, on the other side we have the Thragtusk plus the Township.
Yeah. Township might end up being a factor. Is Evan about to attack with a Fiend Hunter here? I don't. This seems ill-advised.
Not sure what he could hope to accomplish there.
I mean, maybe he wants to Unbarrow Rights his Fiend Hunter after combat, but I don't think that does what you think it does.
No, it looks like he was thinking about sending only the Fiend Hunter in, though.
It's actually pretty interesting. There you go. All right, so now he's not. Now he knows not to attack with Fiend Hunter. I think he was confused for a moment because it was over there. Yeah, so since he has the Unbarrow Rights, not a bad attack here with Obsidian. You're more than happy to trade off that Thragtusk, and then you can just start either chaining your own, or just Unbarrow Rights the Obsidian if you want to. So
there it is. There's the block. So Robert will get another beast, and we'll see if Evan slams a Tusk or reanimates Obsidian.
Yeah, he does have the option to reanimate Sin Collector if he's afraid of something big from Robert, but honestly, if he had Advent of the Worm, he would have cast on turn 4, or, it's not actually even that relevant just because he has so many Thragtusks.
Right, the only non-creatures, or rather the only instants or sorceries that he might be worried about, a removal spell, but he doesn't even have an Angel yet. So
yeah, and to be fair, I think Putrefy on Fiend Hunter would have happened long ago.
Yeah.
If he had it, like, at a point where Sin Collector could actually deal with it. Looks like Robert drew Voice of Resurgence. Doesn't look too happy with his position here. I don't blame him because there is a Thragtusk in the yard and a couple of Unbarrow Rights, and not a whole lot else on his side of the board other than just Thragtusk and Voice. So
yeah, probably really kicking himself for not including some kind of graveyard. Hey, even only a couple slots could have done it.
Agreed. Looks like he's going to cast Voice of Resurgence and Thragtusk, put a bunch of things onto the board to gum it up a little bit. It's going to be a slugfest.
Oh yeah, Tusk number 3 up to 19.
Yep. And after Evan gets done, it's going to be Tusk number 4, 5, potentially 6, 7, 8.
Oh yeah. So
this is one of the things I actually disliked about Standard for a long time was these Thragtusk battles, until I realized that it's not Thragtusk that's the problem. It's Angel Serenity. And, cards like that, it's things that are unfair in certain matchups. Like Thragtusk, sure, it's like very good against mono red, but against like control decks, you can deal with it. And
it's just a guy. It's a 5-mana sorcery speed guy. It doesn't do that much.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's expensive. It leaves a body behind if you Supreme Verdict, but it's just a 3/3 that it leaves behind. And I think a lot of the control decks have adapted themselves to be able to just handle situations that involve, that. So
they've had to, yeah. At first I really didn't like the Standard metagame when RTR came out, but the more I play it and the more I watch it,
I won the first event. It was great.
I mean,
Terminus was the stone cold, man.
Yeah, that was a sweet deck. I was actually doing coverage of that tournament. That was a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I beat Joe Bernal in the semifinals by miracling the Nut Angel Entreat the Angels on the exact turn that I needed to. It was quite good. Alright, so Evan here opts to cast a Fiend Hunter, and I believe he can still flashback and Unbarrow Rights, so this is perfectly acceptable. It's likely, he's going to take care of that Voice of Resurgence, so there's no chance of a big elemental token coming his way anytime soon. Again, more than happy to trade off this Obsidian. One thing I would like him to really grasp, though, is that Thragtusk in this situation is just better because after the Unbarrow Rights, it leaves behind a 3/3, whereas he keeps bringing back Obsidian and draining him for 2, where Robert's already gained 15 life, it's going to be really hard for him to deal that last 15 points of damage with just Obsidian. And if he was just getting back Thragtusk, he could match card for card on the beast tokens that were still left in play.
Yeah, this is going to be really hard for Evan. With Robert having the Township, all of a sudden those beasts are going to be 4/4, 5/5.
Yep, and then he blinks out his Obsidian here, which I also disagree with, because having a 5/5 to block 4/4s is better than draining for 2, I think. I mean, maybe he's just trying to put himself in a position where a top deck Angel Serenity ends the game on the spot because Robert's at such a low life total. I mean, that's a possibility. Excuse me.
Yeah, I really don't like the blink because now Robert can attack with impunity, pump up his guys. Evan takes 12.
Yep. He's still at 9. And he has the potential to block with one of the Fiend Hunters that has the Voice of Resurgence, potentially a mana guy if he draws the land, so he still keeps himself with the ability to cast Angel Serenity, but he really needs a peel here. Thragtusk should help. It can trade off with one of the beasts, and he's going up to 11, putting Robert to 13. He's able to attack for 7, putting him down to 6. How fortunate what a fortuitous endeavor we have entered upon.
You are Evan Erwin's good luck charm today.
Yeah. Well, He lost to Ban Hexproof off camera in one of the feature matches in round 2 and was complaining about it for about 3 hours. But yeah, watching him peel Angel Serenity, not bad.
Not bad. All right.
We get to blink opposite out again, and now he looks like a genius again for blinking the opposite out. So, it's funny. I keep looking like a fool.
Who's got the chips?
Yeah,
that's the question. So Robert has a Garrick that doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
he's dead on board.
Yes, he's at 6. You know, he could -3 and draw 0 cards and see what happens.
See if he peels into any kind of 2-mana wraths.
Yep. Are we? Yep. All right. So you go to 4. I have this 5 power flyer that you don't have an answer to. It might have Celestia Charm. You know, might not attack because it's Celestia Charm.
Might live in fear. There they go.
Oof. Bold move, Cotton.
Evan doesn't even wait. He just extends the hand. He says, "I know you're dead. Just."
No, I think the guy said good game. Evan's not the kind of guy to just put his hand in your face and be like, "Is that good enough?" Yeah.